I started streaming about 10 years ago, and I remember the days of streaming. I was in my bedroom, and we were streaming via Ustream and using an old Mac G4 with Cam Twist and an old USB camera, and we were doing a lot of wild things in streaming back then. Fast forward about 13 years. Yeah, it's been 13 years. Crazy, huh? We have a lot more ability to do streaming, whether it be streaming with just our cameras and our phones or using high-tech equipment. And the high-tech equipment's gotten smaller and better. And including this last year, as Blackmagic has pretty much reduced the switcher down to this little box right here. It's smaller than a laptop. And it's just crazy easy for you to not only capture and stream, but also capture individual videos from each of the 4 inputs to turn around and make a better produced video. And it gets even better now. And then we have COVID that comes out, and so we can't go out to the client anymore, so we have to figure out ways to make the client come to us without coming to us in a virtual manner. And some of these streaming conference software pieces are just not cutting it because they're either putting watermarks in the bottom corner or they're giving you resolutions that are so low that we might as well just be doing stop motion with Legos. How do you bring a guest in for a record, not as much a stream, so you get higher quality video and audio without using the software? That's where Blackmagic has come in once again with this new device that's coming out called the ATEM Streaming Bridge. What it is a device that you attach to your computer through a capture card. You can definitely attach it to your ATEM Mini. But the idea of this is to actually bring in video from the person across the way, across the room, across the house, or even across the world. And that's what we're going to take a look at next on Geekazine. Thanks a lot for watching Geekazine. Of course, I purchased the Stream Deck. I purchased the Streaming Bridge, but all opinions and thoughts are of my own over at Geekazine. You can go over to geekazine.com/review to find out all the details about that. So making streaming easier, video that you can use for any type of interview, any type of product review or anything like that, a lot easier. This is the Streaming Bridge from Blackmagic Design. And what it is a little device that you have on your end will bring in video from wherever an ATEM Mini like this one is. This ATEM Mini can connect up to this thing and we can stream video just through HDMI, or we can put this on the network. I can take this to another room and then have it playing on a monitor so somebody else could be watching what's going on. Or what's most impressive is somebody with an ATEM Mini Pro could be all the way around the world, and they're streaming and they're sending a signal back here. How does it work? Well, it basically uses RTMP through UDP and the port 1935 to send a signal from the ATEM Mini Pro to the Streaming Bridge. Now, keep in mind, before we go further, we're going to tell you a couple things. First of all, your ATEM Mini needs to be either the Pro or the ISO. The introductory ATEM Mini does not work because it does not have the ability to do the stream out. Secondly, you having the Streaming Bridge, you're going to have to open up a firewall port around 1935. If you have another program running on 1935, you'll have to put it on 1936, 1937, but you're going to have to know how to open up that port. So if you're in a business, you'll have to talk to your IT administrator, and if that's you, you're just going to have to open up 1935. Keep in mind, you don't need port 1935 open if you're doing everything internal. This is only if you're accessing the internet to get a signal. All right, let's show you the Streaming Bridge up close and personal. First of all, this is the device right here. It's a metal box, straight up, nice and sturdy. It's got several different inputs and outputs. So we're going to start over here. We have the standard Ethernet jack in here. Of course, this will go to your internet or your intranet, depending on how you're streaming out the box. You can even go peer-to-peer from your ATEM Mini Pro to your streaming bridge. So you can definitely do that. On the side here, we have SDIs in reference inputs. So things like timecode and stuff like that. We have an SDI reference in and a regular reference in. On the other side, we have a USB-C port, which you could use to configure the streaming bridge. And then, of course, we have the HDMI out. We've got the power outlet right here. It does take power. And then, of course, dual SDI outs. So you can go to maybe a recording monitor, maybe a TV that has SDI inputs or whatever, however you use your system out there. On the side here, we have a series of dip switches. Mostly all these dip switches are for if you have multiple streaming bridges, then you can sit there and go, okay, I want this to be identified as the first streaming bridge, so I'll bring down dip switch 1. There are 2 dip switches in here that do things, and of course they're labeled on the back here, and the first one is dip switch 8, and it's basically telling you to turn your interlace on or your interlace off. The dip switch 7 is either level A output or level B normal output, but everything else is assignable. So I could call this streaming bridge 1, so then I'd bring down the 1. All right, let's show you how this connects up. And there's actually 3 ways that you can connect up the ATEM Mini Pro to the streaming bridge. We're going to start with the easiest way, and that is peer-to-peer. All right, to attach your peer-to-peer, all you need is a simple Ethernet cable. And this is, once again, this is why you need either an ATEM Mini Pro or a Pro ISO. You're going to plug it right in the back here into the Ethernet jack of the ATEM control. And then, of course, you're going to plug this into the jack of the streaming bridge right here. We don't have it powered on, so let's go ahead and grab the power cord here. Now, once this does this, you're going to see some, of course, the Ethernet lights here, and you're going to see it flash here. We're not streaming yet, so this will flash like this because we don't have it configured for streaming just yet, and we will do that. And then once we have a connection, we have a couple white lights right down here, which will indicate that we're connected. All right, so in order for this to work, we need to set up the streaming bridge. So this is where you get yourself a USB-C cable running into a USB-C or USB-A for that matter, and we plug it into the USB. We're going to have to go to the software now to configure it. So I have the software up here. It says no switcher is connected because the ATEM Mini Pro is not connected to the network. It's running peer-to-peer. So in order for us to continue, we will probably have to connect this up, and we'll connect this up to USB-C in a minute here. But I want to focus more on the fact of connecting up the streaming bridge first. So what we did was we went into the ATEM software. You can either go through the ATEM software or you can find the ATEM setup. So if you have the ATEM software up, you just go up to File and Connection. That brings up the configuration. It finds no switchers on the network, of course, because we're not plugged in. But if we hit ATEM Setup, we get to a very familiar window. And this window actually right now just shows the streaming bridge, but this will also configure the ATEM Mini when it's plugged in. Of course, it sees this right now, so that's where it's going to go. Streaming bridge, fairly straightforward. Let's expand this all the way so you can see the whole thing. It says that there's no stream going through it, which of course makes sense. And I've called this Geekazine, but in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to do a full factory reset here. So we're going to go into the settings, and I'm going to hit factory reset and do that. It's going to take about a minute for this to reconfigure, but once it comes up, of course, it'll pop right back in as we do have here. And of course, now it's called ATEM Streaming Bridge. So we want to configure this. We're going to go up here and go for the full configuration. First of all, I like to call myself the Geekazine, as in Geekazine. I got this thing going. It happens. So, and of course, we're on software 8.5. 8.5.2 is the software we're running at the time of this recording. On the network, you can choose to go DHCP or static IP address. It really depends on how you set up your network. I always like to go static IP address. That way, it doesn't have to search for IP addresses. And if I have any problems, I can check the router or check the streaming bridge, which means I don't have to connect this up to a computer if there's a problem. But if you are using the streaming bridge in other situations, you might want to do DHCP. We have stream service right here, and there's 3 options here. You have local network without key, local network with the key, and the internet. If you are not using the streaming bridge outside of your house, outside of your network, you don't need the internet. You'll either need the local network without a key or with the key, and that's just basically a security key that is used so nobody else tries to access into the streaming bridge and post weird videos or anything like that. Underneath is we have reference timing via lines and pixels. If we have any type of flutter or anything like that, we can make the adjustments right there. And then, of course, on the bottom, we did the factory reset right there. Now, in order for us to continue, we're going to need to make a reference file, an XML file, which we will end up putting into the ATEM Mini Pro. And this is how we do it. Up here, these are actually tabs up here. And it gets a little bit confusing. That's why I say that, because I wasn't seeing those as tabs myself. But up on here, we're on the Setup tab. We move over to the External ATEM Mini Pro tab, and we've got, of course, a different set of keys here. Since we're doing peer-to-peer, this setup will look a little bit different than if you were going on the internet. But we have the platform, and of course, platform is Bridgazine. The server is an internal server, so it's just a model name of the streaming bridge. A key if you require a key for this type of connection. And then, of course, the quality. And we have multiple qualities from streaming low to streaming medium, all the way to hyperdeck high. Now, of course, if you're using hyperdeck high, it's going to stream at its highest bit rate, which I believe is around 50 to 60 megabits per second. That's what I've seen on the clock, but we'll see what happens when we connect up our streaming bridge to something to stream out from this. So we're going to say, we'll say hyperdeck high, and then we're going to say save ATEM settings. What that'll do is that'll bring up a place to save it, and we're going to call this Bridgazine test and go from there. It's in my XML file area. So now I should be able to pull that file and put it into the ATEM Mini Pro. And let's do that next. All right, so now I have my ATEM Mini Pro connected up into the computer using the USB-C port. Of course, the streaming bridge is also on a USB port. Actually, it's USB-C to A port. But it'll work under a 2.0 or 3.1. It doesn't matter. It's low data rate, so you should be fine plugging into lower end USB port to save on high power. Now, for this, we've now saved the file, so we're going to hit save, and we've got this configured for peer-to-peer transport. So now we're going to go back here, and you notice there's a little arrow on the right. We're going to hit that, and now my streaming bridge is here, and of course it says Geek ISO. That's my streaming bridge right there. So we've got a configuration. That's all configured just fine. We don't need to be in there for that. But what we want to do is we want to go to the software control here, and the switcher should show up in a second. There we go. Now the ATEM, as you can see, it's a standard ATEM software control. Where we want to go is the output to the live stream. So let's minimize all this so it doesn't get in the way. As you can see, we have Bridgazine in here, but that was already in. I've already had things set up. I want to clear this out. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up here to stream, and we're going to say remove all imported settings. And what that will do is that'll clean the slate on the streaming stuff. So if we hit this drop down now, we get this little box right here says remove imported settings, and so you say yes. So we're going to remove it. Now everything is back to its factory setting, only on the stream part, not on anything else. So keep that in mind. So, and of course, by 8.5.2, they have Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, Periscope, and Restream.io. Of course, YouTube being the newer version of YouTube since they made the changes from the Stream Now options. All right, of course, you don't see any of the streaming bridge stuff here, and that's to be expected. We're going to go back here, and we're going to go up to Stream, and we're going to go Load Stream Settings. And of course, if you're on Windows or Mac, this is going to look a little different. This is on a Windows machine, but this will bring up to where you have your file, your XML file, and we're going to, of course, choose that. So I'm going to call it my XML file, and now it is over here. We can go, it shows up right here, Bridgazine. Now keep in mind, if you're doing multiple XML files, you have to change the name. They can't all be Bridgazine. In fact, let's take a look at that XML file for a second here. This is the file right here. It is a standard XML file. You will have to go in, you'll have to change this name to Bridgazine, like test or anything like that. Even if you have the name of the file, Bridgazine test, then this will also have to be something other. So if you have multiple Bridgazines, one using Hyperdeck for the streaming, one using high streaming, low streaming, whatever CS settings, if you've got different keys or anything like that, you'll have to change this name. As you can see, it's a pretty straightforward XML file, and you don't need to change anything else in here, unless maybe you don't want to save a new version of the file and you change your key. You just have to copy and paste out the key. Since there was no key in this situation, we don't see a key in here, but we do see the RTMP location right here for the streaming bridge. Now, from some tests that we've done, the streaming bridge looks for the ATEM Mini Pro in some way, shape, or form. There's some sort of interesting handshake that occurs between the two devices, because I've tried to set up RTMP programs to try and access the streaming bridge, and I've had a few friends try this too, and we haven't figured out if there's a way to work around it so you can use something like a TriCaster or a vMix or a Wirecast to bring your video to the streaming bridge. So with this XML file, that's how it's all set up. We now have it set up over here, and we go to the drop-down menu. There it is right there. We didn't have a key, so the key doesn't show up here. And we can actually still change the quality, but we have it set to streaming. We'll set it back to Hyperdeck High here. And we can choose to display status or not. We'll just leave that there. And we can do one of two things. We can either go and press the button on the ATEM Mini Pro, or from the software, we can just hit the on-air button here. So let's go ahead and do that. And as you can see, solid light. If we go over here and check it from here, you're going to notice that there's two white lights down here, and one of those white lights is on. That's saying the stream is okay. If we were connected to the internet, that first white light would also come on, saying that we're connected to the internet. But right now, we have the ATEM streaming bridge that's going straight from the ATEM Mini Pro. Now, we don't have any cameras set up to the ATEM Mini Pro, and I don't have anything going to a capture card from here. So it's just doing absolutely nothing. But this is the peer-to-peer connection. If the peer-to-peer connection wouldn't be working, the on-air on the screen or this red light on your ATEM Mini Pro would be flashing red. And that's just a simple peer-to-peer setup from your ATEM Mini Pro to your streaming bridge. You can now disconnect any of your USB-C cables, unless if you use the software to do your switching, then you'll need to keep that plugged in. But of course, the streaming bridge, we can definitely unplug it because we've already configured it. So if you're using it in a standalone situation where the ATEM Mini Pro or Pro ISO is in a control room and the streaming bridge is in another room, controlling a monitor or maybe streaming out to the internet or something like that, nothing else has to be done and you're good to go. Now we have it set this way. Let's go ahead and connect it to a network. So maybe I'm in this room doing some recording. Actually, the situation that I'm going to be using this is I'm going to be taking the streaming bridge down to my 24/7 stream machine. I'm going to be plugging it in via capture card, and then I'm going to be connecting this to the network. Eventually, when I go out, I'll be taking my ATEM Mini Pro out with me with a camera or two. I'll be hooking it up to either an internet on that end, or I'll be using my phone, and then I'll be sending the signal back to that stream computer, which will then stream out to the internet. let's get and connect this up to my network and do the second part. All right, so now I have this connected to my internal network, both on the same router, actually on the same switch as well. What's happening now is the ATEM Mini Pro is going into my network switch, and then of course through my network, and then coming out to the streaming bridge. I can have that streaming bridge here. I can take it to the other end of the house. I can wherever I need to. It is a wired connection. There is no wireless connection here, unfortunately. But of course, we don't want a wireless connection because we want nice, solid video for all of our streaming as best as possible. So, okay, so now we have this connected to my internal network. So everything is running through the same router, through the same switch, and we shouldn't have any problem. The cool thing is, whatever configuration you did for the peer-to-peer, we should be able to just run with through here. So if I hit this record button, and once again, you can do it on the software, or you can do it right on the ATEM Mini Pro. We're seeing the connection happen. And in fact, if we go back over to our connection in our ATEM setup, and then we go over to the streaming bridge, we're going to see an on air, and we're going to see a feed, in this case, 1080p 5994, and of course the bit rate. There's nothing plugged in. There's no video plug going in, no video going out. So therefore, the bit rate is going to be low. Let's put a camera to it and see how this changes. All right, it's not going to be anything fancy or sweet, but I did hook up one more camera to this thing. So here's how the situation goes. We're going from the ATEM Mini Pro ISO to the streaming bridge through my local network. And then, of course, in an HDMI out, going to another capture card. And this is the camera right here. And you're seeing the up close and personal ATEM Mini Pro ISO right now. So as you can see, it's working. Let's take a look at what we've got for a connection speed. Once again, we're using the HyperDeck High. And so we'll go to connection. Keep in mind this camera, this does do 60i, if I remember correct, this version, this camera. So we might not get high end. So if you've got a higher end camera, you might get a little better bit rate. But as you can see on the screen, we're on air at 1080p 5994 at about 48 megabits per second, which is pretty decent if you're doing some simple recording. Now, internally, the latency I've been seeing about, I'd say about 0.1 to 0.2 difference. So there'll be a slight little delay, but no different than if you're on a peer-to-peer call, like a Skype or a Zoom call or something like that. So you should be able to have a conversation back and forth. Now, what's really cool is if you had a room where you had the ATEM Mini Pro and a streaming bridge in one, and then an ATEM Mini Pro and a streaming bridge in another. So you could literally use the Mini Pro to feed your camera feed in to send to the streaming bridge over on the other side. They can then see you, and then they have an ATEM Mini Pro, which would then come back to you so you could see them. So you can have a conversation room to room with this hardware. Now that we have this set up for this way, we want to go out to the internet and come back. And that's pretty much the more impressive part of this whole thing. So let's go ahead and do that. In order to do that, we're going to turn off our stream, of course. And then, of course, we can see that our bridge is now saying that's off. All right, so here we go. We're going to go into the streaming service. We're going to choose internet this time. And we're going to go to the external Mini Pro. We have our name, which of course the platform is Geekazine, but we're going to say Geekazine Internet. The server, this information you leave unless you have something very specific for an IP address. But this self-populates. And of course you have a key that's also populating. And if you go back to the setup, you can choose the key. Also in the setup, what you want to do is you want to set up your worldwide port. I told you before, you'll have to drill out a 1935 off of your firewall. In my case, my 1935 was used for something else, so I chose 1937 for the port. I'm going to hit retry, and of course, we get this internet status of visible worldwide. When we go back to 5, we're going to get, and we do retry, we're going to get internet status, basically saying, hey, I cannot get out of your network with this. So it's, port forward error. So you'll know that you'll have to go into your firewall, to fix that if that happens. So let's go back to 1937, hit retry, and there we are. We're visible worldwide. Now we'll go back to the external ATEM Mini Pro side, and we've got the platform set up. We got the server, which of course you're not going to touch unless there's some place specific you're directed to go. Somebody's telling you to go there. And then of course the key, which you can change at any time. And then the quality. And in this case, we don't have a great internet for a HyperDeck High. So we don't want to break any internet speeds. So let's go streaming medium. And let's go save ATEM settings. And this time what we're going to do is we're going to go up to stream, and we're going to go to local streaming settings, and we're going to go to that Geekazine test out. And we're just going to open up that file to show you how it's set up now. The file is set up, and as you can see, we have Geekazine Internet for the name, and of course our stream key, our RTMP right here, and then of course all the same stuff that we saw before. So with that said, we're going to double click on here, and we're going to go over here, and we're going to see Geekazine, and you're going to go where to go. Well, if you do the drop down, now we're going to see a Geekazine Internet, and when that happens, you're going to see everything populate. Streaming medium, there's the key right there, and now we're ready to go. So all we have to do is hit the on air either right here or on the ATEM Mini Pro, and we will get an internet connection. So let's do that. If we didn't get an internet connection, we would see this on-air blink on and off. So, but we know it's a solid connection because it says on air. We got a count up clock. So let's go back to the connection, and let's go to take a look at this, and we'll go back to the streaming bridge, and it says that it's on air. We're at 1080p 59.94. And we're at 7.64 megabits per second, a streaming medium. So that's perfect for somebody like me. But of course, if you're doing more higher end stuff, you have maybe a Blackmagic Cinema 6K or 4K or something like that connected up, you'll want to have a better bit rate. And so you'll probably want to go streaming high or to the HyperDeck stuff. So there you go. It's going across the internet. We're going to start at the ATEM Mini Pro, and then it's going to move all the way over through the internet, through to the streaming bridge, and then it's coming into a capture card, which is over there. Let's show you. There's a little bit of delay, so let's show you that, and we'll flip over to this. It is not going to be perfect. As you can see, there is a delay. That's measured about a second to two delay, depending on, I guess, internet, and of course where you are and where your destination is. So if we do this, we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You see the delay right there. So it's not going to be perfect for a one-on-one conversation live. There will be some delay, but if you're doing some post editing or you don't mind that small delay, then you should be able to go and have yourself a great conversation. And of course, when we're all done, all we have to do is hit this button right here, and the stream goes off. So that's the ATEM streaming bridge from Blackmagic Designs. A couple things you need to know. First of all, this is only capturing a signal coming from an ATEM Mini Pro. We've tried to use other programs to send an RTMP to the streaming bridge, but it wouldn't accept it. You would send it out through the stream, right into the streaming bridge, and then this would go to a capture card into your computer. There's no commands going back, so this does not control this. This is simply to capture high quality video from a distance and be able to get the news story or do one-on-one interviews without having that really blocky version or watermarks in the bottom corner and anything like that. Of course, the price is really good, but you do have to have the Mini Pro, at least the Mini Pro with there, so that technically does add to the cost. But I'm glad I got it. I'm going to definitely be using it. Once again, I'm going to be putting it down in my basement on my stream machine, and so when I'm out, I can interrupt my stream with a live action and send it straight to the streaming machine, which would then go to my regular channels. And that's pretty cool. Are you going to get yourself the streaming bridge? Let me know. What do you think about it? do that in the comments down below. Don't forget to subscribe over at Geekazine and go ahead and like this video. There's a bell notification too if you want to know when the next Geek video comes out. That's pretty much it for this video. Thanks a lot for watching. Until next time, you guys geek out. And hey, show me your live stream. Let's all stream on. Take care.